And at the beginning, did you kind of want him maybe not here so he could get more playing time maybe elsewhere, or how does it all played out?
I think that because of injury to Ben and to Jared, he's put himself in a position where you really consider him, and as time has unfolded, I considered him enough to sit Sergio Rodriguez, give Nick Stauskas the ball and look at him in that situation and gives Timmy more minutes. And I don't see that being a constant, but that influenced that decision. And so my job is to, always find that line of experimenting and developing and winning games. And Timmy was the recipient of how we see him, really how we view him in Atlanta. And I think in general, he's moving in a direction in a quicker way than we had expected by and large, because of injuries that have put him in that position, and he's taken advantage of it.
Where specifically do you see that he's really grown more?
Downhill, like he plays downhill, and the decision he makes once he's at the rim have been more sophisticated than I thought. He's always had that athleticism, but now he's learning how to drive his car in traffic. And he is our most gifted runner. He is our most athletic wing. And we want to play fast. I think TJ's as good as there is in the NBA on kick-aheads and sending the ball up the floor. And all of those things, matter. You go back and you look at tape, he has had key baskets, big baskets, in fourth periods where we have gone to him and he has responded. Maybe not late in the games, but at that point where games still feel like they're in the balance, he's come up with something that's usually driven by his athleticism and attack mode.
Do you just see him as necessarily a 2, a 3, maybe someone that goes in between? Have you figured out enough on that yet?
No, and I think so much of it, twos, threes, twos, it's all, and I think most NBA coaches' worlds offensively one and the same. It's usually like, can you guard Carmelo? And okay, whoops, you're not a 3 now. And now all of a sudden you got to go guard, one of the bouncy wings. And so offensively it doesn't really matter. Defensively it does. I like him when you're not talking about those Joe Johnson, Kawhi, Melo 3 men. He can guard pretty much all of that because he's big enough, he's athletic enough. And I think the thing I like as much as anything is I think there's a toughness in that kid that there is no back down. He really has been a good selection by Brian and his group.
How do you approach the next 2 games if you're going to be without Joel?
Just like we have for all the other times that he didn't play. It's still about our defense. It's still about running. It's still about sharing the ball. I think you go at Jaleel and Nerlens and challenge them in relation to rim protection and what Joel provides us. The group around them has also got to perform at a higher level when you don't have Joel. I think that second group that we have been playing, led by Nerlens, really can take on a far greater defensive identity than it has recently, and Nerlens will be the captain of that. And that's the challenge, I think, for the team and certainly for that second group.
Brett, the other night, and I know you wouldn't have heard Jaleel post-game, but it was the first time he really seemed frustrated. Did you sense that in his play, or did you?
I didn't. I talked so repetitively with Jaleel that I didn't sense it. One of the things that we challenge all of our guys with is you can't look over at a coach. You can't expect to come out of a timeout and have a play that gets you the ball. Like, he's got to create his own offense. Joel Embiid has to create his own offense. Duncan used to have to create his own offense. And so there's a partnership with all my players, and I want everybody to hear this, with all my players, that there's a self-participation where we want them running the floor and commanding deeper catches and touches and rolling harder. And you leave a game like the other night and you see Ja had 8 shots or whatever he had. He needs more. If he's the guy, he got to get more touches. He got to get more shots. And so with all of us, and us is the word, there's a responsibility. And it's that's not how any of our guys' world should be driven. Do I get touches? It's can I guard? You know, how do we run? Team stuff. And in that same world, you recognize Jahlil Okafor is a target. He is an elite scorer. So it's a team thing, you know, led by me.
If you're going to be, oh, go ahead. Okay, if you're going to be shorthanded without bigs, where does Rashawn fit into all of this?
You know, he comes in behind Jahlil and Nerlens. You know, we go with 3 5 men. I'm lucky to have those 3 guys. The other night in Atlanta, I didn't like the second group, so I pulled them all and came in with you know, Rashawn and some other ones. It just wasn't getting it done. And so to have that luxury, you know, is a part of being a team. And I see those guys, you know, holding on to that spot. Sometimes performances aren't good. Sometimes foul trouble happens. You know, and so you got 3 5 men. You go into NBA programs, that's what you're going to hear. You're going to have 3 5 men. Sometimes in pinches, you know, based on different things, we've gone Irsan as a 5 and Dario as a 4. So although we don't have Joel, you still have things to call upon. You still have resources. It's just, you know, not Joel Embiid. And so everybody has to rally around that and has to get done as a team.
What's the level of concern around here about Embiid? Is it a problem or is this just precautionary?
Precautionary.
Did you see enough from Rashawn? I don't know how much you want to practice today to get an impression that he's still fresh from what he was doing in Delaware and maybe how that experience paid off that you guys had with them?
I think anytime we've done this for a while, you get somebody back from the D League, you know, they just get a bounce. There's an excitement just to be back on an NBA court in an NBA practice facility with his teammates. And so, you know, I think that bounce and swagger you see as much out of just the environment and excitement of being back as whatever good things could have happened out of the D League experience. I will say that it's great to have him. We had a spirited practice today. He was a large part of that. And, you know, he's done enough for us to pay attention to Rashawn Holmes.
A couple of years ago, Covington comes here really out of nowhere. Nobody knew. Did he impress you right away? Was there something that you saw in him?
Michael Finley had probably the prettiest stroke that I have coached, because the rotation, the backspin, the rotation and the arc was beautiful. And Robert came in, and we didn't really know much about him, and it was in Madison Square Garden. I think he had 4 threes and just went bam, bam, bam. You could see, wow, you know, he really has a pretty stroke. He's got tremendous arc. He's a shooter, like in trail. I feel like when you really study Robert, it shouldn't surprise us so much of his shots. He was a college four-man, so most of his threes are playing, you know, coming like you trail into offense. It's not like you're coming off pin downs going away from the basket like Ray Allen or, you know, Steph Curry. And so his wave into the offense going one way is at times elite, and his shot is elite. And I think at that stage, that moment, you could see he really has a pretty ball. He can shoot.
You used him as a stretch four at that game in New York in the fourth quarter.
I did, and we did the other night. Yeah. You know, I still think it's so different when you ask somebody to go find a shot and get your shot off on 3 men. You know, we all remember and talk about, you know, Robert slumps, and he's in a slump. Well, you start playing him a little bit out of 4, and 4 men are guarding him and having to find him in transition. Where is Robert Covington? You get a lot more cleaner looks. I've experienced. We've learned that. And so we've pretty much, because of Dario and Irsan, they've dominated that 4 spot for obvious reasons. You know, he's going against 3 men defending him. And so at times those defenders can get to his ball quicker. And I think in general, you know, we should all look at Robert Covington as somebody that is has developed incredibly before all of our eyes to an elite defender, a two-way player, and an emerging leader.
Couple more guys.
I don't look at it that way at all. Sure, it definitely hurts the team. How can we spin it any other way? It hurts the team. But like anything, you know, you're going to now look at Nerlens and Jahlil. This is fantastic for those two. And it could prove, based on some things, you know, Rashawn sees daylight a little bit. And, you know, there aren't sort of many teams, I would suspect, that have the ability to roll out 3 young guys when somebody like Joel goes down, and look forward to watching them develop more. Look forward to giving them the opportunity to play NBA minutes. And so, setback doesn't immediately come to my mind because I think there are other positives given where we're at in the stages of our program. It's not like we're trying to hold on to, second in the East spot. We're still growing our program. We're still experimenting. We're still developing. We can never forget that. That's the lay of our reality land. And so in this situation, my mind goes to those places as ways to make it positive.
At the end of games, you haven't been calling a lot of timeouts. Like the other night with TJ, you were telling him to just keep going. Is that a concerted, looking at the personnel and realizing that they're going to do better just in the flow of the game instead of trying to draw the play?
I'm always, and I hear your question. I always sometimes wonder why it gets as much attention as it does. It's the same answer I gave when we did call a timeout. You feel it. You just feel. Is there odd numbers? Is the game moving in a direction that you just want to just let it go and they'll figure it out? Versus they're dribbling up the floor against 5 NBA defenders. Maybe that's not so good. Maybe you should, do something to try to get a better shot. I told you the life we live. Tony Parker either had a layup or you called a timeout and you got dunked in the ball. It was that simple. And so the gut feel of those situations is do you have numbers? Is it chaos? And then you always get back to, you're looking at the other team who would they sub if you did call a timeout? Are they going to take out some defenders that are poor defenders and bring in better defenders? And so, it's in warp speed, real time, but in general, that's what's going through your mind. And recently it's helped us. Recently it's helped us, and it doesn't really change how I see that environment. I give our guys a lot of credit, and we've talked about it. If you guys feel it and you see it, take off. If you feel it and you see it, take off. Don't look at me. I'll come flying on the court if I have to. Otherwise, take off. And they have, and I think that we've been rewarded for that.